Here's the big one, the legendary Nikon F from 1959. A true legend. Nikon F is careless, the unforgettable, the brilliant strategist who killed the tyrant Molor with the first bat'leth, the sword of honor, thereby unified his people and became emperor of the Klingon people.
Even centuries later, few nations could inspire such respect in its allies and terror in its enemies as the Imperial Klingon Empire.
In case you want to know, the name is Nikon. It is not Nikon, it is not Nikon, it is Nikon. The name Nikon dates from 1946 and is a merging of the name of the company, Nippon Kogaku, or Japan Optical,
Nippon Kogaku,
and the Zeiss brand that you know very well, Zeiss Ikon.
Zeiss Ikon.
So, Nippon and Ikon became Nikon.
Nikon.
That caused some problems in Germany. Zeiss complained that Nikon violated his trademark. So, from 1963 to 68, Nikon F in particular was labeled as a Nikor. I'm going to show you all the features that were innovative at the time, or a combination of technologies of the time that were so competently put together to an unbeatable package. I'm also going to tell you a few strange things that didn't catch on. Let's start from the top systematically. This is the film advance lever, single stroke, unlike one of its contemporaries, Leica M3, that was double stroke at that time. Here you have the film counter, goes to 36, but here you have a choice of 36 film versus 20 film. This is the shutter release. Beautiful sound. As you do that, there's a red dot in the middle that rotates 360 degrees. The reason for that becomes clear later on. There's a ring around this that has two settings. A is for advance, R for rewind. In the middle, we have a metered finder. Nikon F had 4 different finders: F, T, TN, and FTN. This particular one is model T, one of the earlier models. On this side, we have the film rewind. To rewind the film, you put this on R and rewind with a rewind crank. This kind of folding rewind crank was pioneered by Pentax, amongst many other things, and it was adopted here. There's no hot or cold shoe in the center because this is removable. That would have been too wobbly. Instead, there's an accessory shoe that fits onto here and provides 2 contacts here, and it gives on top of it a hot shoe. On the back there isn't much to see. There's a very nice clear viewfinder, 100% view, unlike many cameras of its time, like Leica's, where they're proud to have up to 80% or so view. Nikon came out of the box with 100% view. Nice, clear, large. In the front, we have the original Nikon lens, 1.4 f50mm standard lens. Quite a fast lens at 1.4. You can also see the style of the old lenses with the serrated edge here for the focus ring. See the ring at the back, which is the aperture. It goes from 16 to 1.4. The focus ring has both meters and feet. Below that you see some colored lines. These colored lines match with the color coding of the aperture numbers. For example, let's say 8 is your selected aperture. It's pink. So from this pink line to that pink line, all of the distances, on this occasion from 1.7 to about 2.5 meters, will be in focus. One major innovation in Nikon F that was adopted by all other cameras in the future was the full integration of the settings of the lens, particularly the aperture, with the body of the camera, and to some extent with the shutter. Both of those fed into this light meter and indicated on one needle. So you could either rotate this or rotate that, and any combination to get the right exposure. That is achieved by the coupling of this ring mechanically with that finder, which I'll demonstrate to you now. Press this button and rotate the lens to the right, which is the opposite of what you would guess, and the lens comes out. Now you can see what's going on. There's this module over here which fits into that element over there, referred to lovingly as rabbit ears. Fully mechanical connection. It rotates it left and right, and that communicates the setting directly to the meter inside of there. So to put the lens back, this needs to engage with that correctly. That's a little bit tricky. The best way to do it, which is even better than the manual, is you put this on 5.6, pretty much right in the middle. Push this to the extreme right, then you can't go wrong. Align the black dot to black dot, rotate. You can see that at this point it's about to engage. Click, and it's engaged. Now as you rotate this, the engagement is confirmed. Another innovation in this kind of camera is that because you're viewing through the lens in an SLR arrangement, you want to see the clearest, brightest image. That means regardless of which aperture setting you have, for example 16, which is a very small hole in the aperture, when you look through here, you see the biggest, brightest image. What's going on is that it will narrow down the aperture to what you set only at the time of releasing the shutter. Only then, for a nanosecond, it contracts, takes the picture, and goes back to the large size. Another innovation, which was also pioneered by Pentax, is the mirror, which is a reflex mirror. It rotates up and down at the time of taking the picture, comes back automatically, goes up and comes down immediately. That wasn't the case with all the cameras that came before it, especially the German cameras. With some of those, the mirror came back when you cocked the shutter with the advanced lever. Now let's remove this to demonstrate what's happening. Press this button over here, lift this up. That mirror is reflecting the light at almost 45 degrees to this focusing screen. Originally, Nikon F had 5 different focusing rings with different patterns. Later on, it was expanded to 11 focusing screens. How do you take it out? Very, very easy. You can see there are 2 tabs over there that are gripping the edge of this frame. The same button that releases the finder can be pressed, and you can see that those 2 tabs will retract. So you retract it, then this comes out in your hand. The underside of it, which is now this side, is matte. The other side is shiny. To put it back, just drop it in place. Not difficult. Then press the same button again and push it in. To put it back, you have to make sure that this is in the center, the rabbit ears on 5.6 in the center, and this is also in the center, so that when you put it in, it's aligned properly. Alternatively, you can take the lens out, put this back in, and then fit the lens in the way I showed you before. Without the finder, there's a shutter dial over here that goes from T to B and all of the settings from 1 second to 1/1000th of a second. There's also a little rod coming out of here, and there is a dot in the middle. What are these for? This dot, which is currently at approximately 8 o'clock, will rotate and goes to exactly 9 o'clock, which is in line with this index on the left. So when that dot is exactly at 9 o'clock, it means that you've used this and the film has been wound. Of course, another way to know is that this will not go any further than here. When I press this button, that will then go back to 8 o'clock. Alright, that's a curiosity, isn't it? Have a look at this window over here. There's some colored dot over there. There's several colored dots over there that can be set by lifting this ring up and rotating. That's a red dot, another setting, and another setting. Suffice to say, those are all colored combinations for the use of flash with different settings. All of them don't matter to you anymore in this century. Just go for the last one, which is FX, which is for electronic flash synchronization. That's all you need to know. Forget about the rest, never change that. Alright, T is for time. That means when you put this on T, T on the index at 9 o'clock, when you wind this and you shoot, the shutter remains open until you change this to any other setting, like that, left or right. As long as it goes off the T, it will close the shutter. B is different, it's for bulb. That means it remains open as long as you press your finger on it, releases when you release. So, why do we have a ring over here and a ring over here? Because both do the same thing. There are some finders which don't have metering in there, as a pyramidal one, which is highly sought after nowadays. If you can get one, just get one quick because they're going. When you put this on, you need to make sure that this will align with that properly. If I turn this upside down, you find that there's a depression over there that needs to attach to this rod that comes out. So how do we align this with that? Not by trial and error, not by rotating it until it fits, none of those. The way you do it is you put this on 60, which is also the default flash sync speed, 60 or anything slower. So put it on 60. This one also, you put it on 60 on this edge. So that's 60 also red. Now curiously, 6 here is on 9 o'clock, 6 here is at 6 o'clock, and yet the rod and the hole will match up. Okay, curious. Why didn't they make them the same? When you put this in there, the two of them match. And now, as you rotate this, when this says 60, you know that the bottom ring that it's attached to is hidden now, is also 60. And every other setting is duplicated in this ring, currently covering the previous ring. Say that's 1000. Alright, so this allowed Nikon in a fully mechanical way to have multiple finders and all of them mechanically rotate the same shutter dial. At the top we have the film speed in ASA, which is the same as today's ISO. The range is quite impressive, from 25 here all the way to 6400. In-betweens are also shown, which is very convenient, 32, 64 and 160, my favorite for Portra 160. There's a specific setting for that. Well, what do you align with it? That's the question. On top there seems to be no index. This is what you have to do. A little bit of a curiosity in this model of finder. On this edge, you find some numbers. 1.4, 2, 2.8, 3.5, 4.5. Well, as you've guessed, these are apertures. But what does that have to do with the aperture? That's shutter dial, right? Well, not quite. This meter needs to know what's your maximum aperture. So on this lens, it's 1.4. So our index is the number 1.4. So visually go from 1.4 to the top. There's a little notch, the second one over there. Okay, so we have to remember the second notch is what we set. To where? To our favorite 160 for my Portra 160. That's where it is. Metering is done with a needle, which is seen both outside here. Not sure if the reflection allows to see. Hopefully it does. The needle has to be in the center. That means correct setting. This white area is a diffuser to get light into this finder. There's no LED of any kind inside to light it up. As a matter of convenience, especially from the angle of a photographer looking this way, keeping it up near the eye, here you can see the shutter speed, right? For the aperture, you look at this tiny window here, which shows you live what your aperture setting is. 4, 5.6 and all the way to 16. So again, this fully mechanical system is communicating to that other number over there. Brilliant. It has the same kind of genius in mechanics as Hasselblad.
He is the one.
Nikon F is Neo, who is the one, a human with the power to manipulate the matrix, who has been foretold to end the war between humans and machines, but in a package that was frankly sci-fi for the time. Let's continue with this finder. It has a CDS light meter, so it requires batteries. This is the battery chamber. It takes 2 mercury batteries, PX13 or 625, the same problematic batteries that are not made anymore because of the mercury inside them. However, you can get those adapters which can take LR44 and use it here. If you want to know exactly what to do and the best results, have a look at this video for the batteries that you can't find anymore. To turn on the meter, there's a fully mechanical system again, no LEDs here. You press this button and that knob will turn up. Red. It's a faked up LED of the time, right? Red means it's on. To turn it off, you press it down. There's no red, it's off. To tell if the battery is working or not, there's a very small button over there. You press that, needle goes to the left. That means battery is good. Let me show you some curiosities. Remove the lens to demonstrate. This is a standard lens, but super wide angle lens 21mm had a design which had this section protruding way into the body. The mirror would be in the way, so they invented a system of keeping the mirror up. Now we call that mirror lockup. Very common thing, but it wasn't common at the time. New innovation. By now we're used to mirror lockup to simply move the mirror out of the way, right? That's not the way this works. This is mirror lockup, and you have to align the black dot to the red dot. Let me do that. Right. Nothing happened. So the action of the mirror going up is activated and charged by the film advance lever. You do this and you do a dummy shot. You have to actually shoot, and that goes up. They call this a dummy shot. No picture was taken. Now let's say the lens is on. You wind this again. Now this is a real one. Okay, that's your real shot. After that, you can bring the mirror down by rotating this back. Comes back down. Got it? Quite an unusual feature. One more thing. Depth of field is greatest when the aperture is narrowest, for example 16 versus 1.4. If you're looking through 1.4, you're seeing a very shallow depth of field, whereas at 11 or 16, it is very wide. Almost everything should be in focus. How do you know that? How do you know that? Since you're looking at a wide open lens. For that, the innovation was to provide depth of field preview with this button. So it momentarily closes down the aperture, allows you to look through there and see the true depth of field, although the scene will darken as well, which is a bit of a pain, but at least for a moment you can see the correct depth of field. If you like it, you let go and take the picture. What was this dot for in the middle of the shutter release? I'll tell you what it is for. Very, very curious. Unlike many cameras of this type, if you want to do double exposure or triple exposure, you don't just put this on rewind, and usually that disengages the take-up spool, and you wind this, it only cocks the shutter and you take as many pictures as you like. Not here. Not here. First, you take the normal picture. Got it? Good. So the frame inside is now exposed. The next thing is you wind this again the normal way, but you don't shoot because the previous frame has now gone this way. A new frame is there. What you have to do is to return the old frame back to the center. What do you do? The same as rewinding the film. You put this on R as in rewind. Then you use this rewind crank. When you do that, when there's a film inside, when you do that, this dot will rotate backward. When it goes 360 degrees to the same spot, which is the top, you know that the original frame is back in place. Then you put this back onto A again, charge again, and shoot again. That was already curious enough, but let me tell you, because you did this twice, first the frame to go, then you returned it without telling anything else to the body of the camera, then you charge this again, the number has now gone forward, and it's a mistake. If you do too many double exposures, you basically run out of numbers here. Okay? Bad luck. If it gets to the end of it, I'm not sure what happens. Maybe you lose some shots at the other end of the film. At the bottom, there isn't very much. Tripod socket here, reminder of the ASA, with another bit of curiosity here. Black is for black and white film, and red is for color film. So, can we tell whether there is black and white or color film in there? Is it E for empty, or is it a color film inside at ISO 460? Which one is it? No idea. To take the back off, you open this tab over here, rotate it the normal way for Nikon, that is to the left 180 degrees, and the entire back comes off. Why does the whole back come off? Not just a simple hinge. Because Nikon out of the box had many different backs that fitted on this, including a motor drive, many other accessories. This is what became the complete standard of Japanese cameras for decades to come. Fixed take-up spool, 8 sprocket barrel over here. This is a titanium foil shutter, not cloth, or if you prefer titanium.
Titanium. Titanium.
This is how you put the film in. remove the entire back, get some film, put the film in one of those slots, stretch, put this on the other side, advance, it goes in the opposite direction to what you guess. One rotation is usually enough, but you can do a couple if you like, to be sure, or partially. Good enough. Push the back in, rotate 180 degrees, fold back, ready to go. Look at here. You want to shoot a few more until it comes to the beginning, which is 0. Now you're safe to shoot real pictures. You look inside the viewfinder, you see the needle, which is usually off the center. You try to rotate shutter dial or aperture to bring the needle to the center. You can alternatively look at this window over here. Now, something that drives people crazy is that the left side of the needle means overexposure, the right side means underexposure. The conventional thinking nowadays is the right side means overexposure, left side means underexposure. But this twisted logic comes from the settings of the aperture ring. You can see 16 is on the left, 1.4 is to the right. So if it's overexposure, you have to twist this way. So to move the needle to the right, you move this to the right. So that was the thinking by Nikon engineers. In the same way, if it's an overexposure, which it shows on the left side, you want to twist this in this direction. So they thought that was intuitive.
He is the chosen one. You must see it.
Nikon F is Anakin Skywalker. He was supposed to be the chosen one. He became the powerful Darth Vader, feared by all. In the end, he destroyed the Sith Lord and fulfilled the prophecy, restoring balance to the Force. Nikon F was contemporary of Leica 3G, 1956 to 1960. Good camera, solid, excellent in its own way, but by comparison, this is sci-fi brought in by aliens. Superior features in every way. Titanium shutter, interchangeable high-quality lenses, light meter built in, 100% view, communication between the lens and the viewfinder, integration of shutter and aperture, easy winder, easy rewind, easy film loading, modular system with many different accessories. What else can I say? Nikon F was also contemporary of Leica M3. Rangefinder, problematic lenses. For certain lenses you had to get a goggle. Single film advanced stroke, double stroke. Easy film rewind, difficult film rewind. Easy film loading, difficult film loading. No wonder Leica was very worried. It took them 5 years to compete with Nikon F with the first Leica Flex. That wasn't very successful. Nikon F was a contemporary of Asahi Pentax, which was full of innovations of its own, not to the same extent, but nevertheless an excellent camera series. It brought in the modern configuration of pentaprism, as the name suggests, Pentax. Dated 1957, 2 years before that. Zeiss Ikon brought out cameras with pentaprism earlier than Nikon, although the rest of the features are far superior in Nikon compared to Contaflex. This came out 1 year before that. So the principles of compact design, easy to see viewfinders, was already established. Nikon took this idea and many others and took it to the perfection of the time. 2 years after this Nikon F, Canon was still producing cameras such as this, Canon 7, and this Canon Net. It took Canon until 1971 to come up with its own Canon F1. Over in Germany, Zeiss Ikon was complaining that Nikon F was too similar to their cameras, maybe borrowing some ideas. This is the kind of camera that was being produced there. Zeiss Ikon went as far as to threaten magazines that declared Nikon F and its lenses superior to Zeiss Ikon cameras and lenses, but they didn't listen. Have a look at our video on this Praktica 5F over here. Olympus took its time, took until 1972 to come up with its own professional OM1, 13 years after Nikon F. One of the major achievements of Nikon was the Nikon F mount. The F in F mount stands for F in reflex. They could have gone for R mount, but R is a bit difficult to say in several Asian languages, so they went for F, and that lasted until the recent digital cameras and the invention of the Z mount. The F mount retained its flexibility even as electronics were added. The basic F mount did not have to change. It already started off being quite large, much larger than the mounts common at the time. The success of the F mount was such that even now, 2020s, a modern camera such as this ZFC can still use the same lens. All it needs is an adapter. There it is. Works. 64-year-old lens, 2-year-old camera body, digital. That is forward thinking. Closer to this timeline, Nikon F is the first iPhone, a decade ahead of its time, that destroyed major icons of the industry: Nokia, BlackBerry, Sony Ericsson, and Microsoft.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is.
All the technology in it was already available somewhere, but when they were combined with total competence, style, and modular expansion, the world instantly changed and everyone else became a follower. So here it is, the iconic Nikon F. For a camera lover, camera user, this is the one to get. A part of the history and something that you can still use today and enjoy. It is not a shelf item. It is not a vintage item that you're too frightened to touch. You can take this out, give it a beating, and it'll survive all that beating. The next episode will be Nikon F2.
With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy.
For now, if this was informative, please subscribe and like.